welcome to Bastardville. My name is Fieros Reborn, and I am reborn on the channel again, yet again. I feel a little bit reborn today, actually. Yeah, I am trying to rebirth myself over a period of time, because I've obviously eaten my former self, and I'm trying to rebirth it from this giant belly of mine, which is just poking out. So part of my rebirthing process is to rebirth myself from my own womb. Okay, let's carry on. We're talking about Ward 12. This is Fieros' story time. Let's do a quick recap. Why am I talking about this? Good question. Well, because I decided that I needed to get over my past, and I decided I needed to work through my past. I've also got a window of opportunity in my life here, living with my mum, with financial support from my family, so that I don't actually have to work. So I have, it's not going to last forever, but I have a period of time where I have the freedom to do these kinds of internal projects and get over certain things from the past, and to basically clarify my inner life. I think that's a good way to put it, is to clarify my own inner life, which means sifting through the past, coming to terms with the past, yeah, and then as I'm moving forward, liberating my emotions in the present, and then looking at the future as to the kind of future I want to create, and then taking the action in the present that moves me towards creating that future. Woof, yeah. So I'm doing this series primarily for my own mental and emotional health, but it's deeper than health, because I'm already fairly mentally and emotionally healthy. This is more like I'm doing this for a sense of deeper satisfaction in my life, a feeling of deeper personal coherency as well. This is a big buzzword for me at the moment. Personal coherency, being coherent as a person. Coherent in my mind, in my thoughts, in my emotions, in my physicality. It's like knowing who I am, being who I am, and expressing who I am as I go forward in a coherent way that it takes into account the past, it takes into account the present, takes into account the future, so that I am really being an expression of who I am and who I want to be as I move forward. But personal coherency is also how I feel in myself. So, like, I can feel it coming in my life more and more at the moment, which is this sense of, not only am I acting with integrity, but I feel like my whole body is more unified. That I feel like my field of presence in my body is aligned, lining up, feeling strong, feeling kind of present, feeling... It's almost like, if you imagine the human body and the psyche as an interlocking system of different parts, originally the parts they come in and they're coherent when you're a baby, and then they get all this kind of input, and parts are still coherent, and parts become stronger, and then parts become weaker, and parts become like fractured and distorted, and so emotions get stronger in certain areas and they get weaker in other areas, and then they get distorted, and thinking gets stronger and weaker and distorted and things like that. So by the time you get to like the age of 30 or even 40, let's say, you've had so much life experience that has pulled your whole mind and emotions and body in various different ways, so that who you are may be more or less coherent. I don't know how else to express it. So for me, this feeling of personal coherency is something like all parts and feelings and thinking of myself are coming into line and being very coherent. It's the same fucking word. But yeah, So for me in my life, my personal coherency, for example, through the psych ward period, my personal coherency was completely whack. So I was acting on different impulses. Thoughts were dragging me over here, feelings were pushing me over there, and beliefs and ideas and impulses and stuff. And so I kind of was going in a million different directions all at once. So that was a personal incoherency, personally incoherent, which is why my family and the people around me couldn't understand what the hell was going on, because I was expressing massive personal incoherency. And this telling of the story of that time in my life is bringing that incoherency to a sense of coherency. So incoherent meaning bits and stuff flying everywhere, jaggedy blotches and dots, and like a Jackson Pollock of a painting, like bleh, everywhere, right? That was what my psyche was like. My behavior, my thinking, what I was saying, how I was feeling, bleh, just everything everywhere. And then, and so to bring all that stuff, all those little different pieces that are flying around everywhere, to bring them all into a sense of a structure that makes sense, to bring all the different parts that are off at tangents and wobbling wildly around, to bring them together so that all the different parts of me in my psyche, and psyche meaning thinking, feeling, action, behavioral tendencies, stuff like that, bringing everything into this kind of feeling of wholeness, unity, unifying things, cohering, bringing together, like tying up loose ends, So that's what this journey has been. And there's another element to it as well, which is that I am aware that me speaking about this is helpful for other people, because they can see into, they can sort of see into themselves by seeing into me, if that makes sense. It's helpful for me to talk honestly about my past experiences, so that I'm where there are matching feelings and stories and thinking, that can be helpful for other people to recognize what they've been through. So I'm also aware that sometimes even just talking about it openly is liberating for other people, because someone watching this can say, oh, thank fuck someone else is talking about it, so I feel validated, or I feel okay, I'm glad that this is here. So I've had some positive feedback from people who feel like that they're glad that I'm doing this, because it's just nice to hear people being genuine and honest and talking about tragedy honestly and clearly, and moving through it. Okay, anyway, so that's why I'm doing this. The other easier answer would be just to say because I want to, because I feel like it, because I feel like I need to, and because it's a creative project that I want to finish, and I feel the need to finish it. Yeah, I need to finish the creative projects. I need to be finished with the past as well. So, you've been following the channel, the video series, you know that I am now talking about being in a psychiatric ward. It's called Ward 12 of Heatherwood Hospital in Ascot. That ward I don't think exists anymore as a psychiatric ward, because I believe that a lot of the mental health services, both the Wexham Park Hospital psychiatric ward and the Ascot Heatherwood one, and maybe other ones that I'm not aware of, were brought together, and they built a more expansive ward in Reading. So that was a big facility for mental health in the whole of the Berkshire area. But during the time that I was sectioned and put in the psychiatric ward, there was this Ward 12 in Heatherwood, Ascot. So, you know that I was sectioned because Well, I guess, as I said earlier on, because I was displaying this massive personal incoherency, so no one else could understand what I was doing, why, and it was becoming dangerous to myself and to other people. Um, yeah, so the main reason that I got sectioned the second time was because my parents had taken my passport because they had reason to believe that I would want to flee the country again because I'd already fled the country to go to America for a random spiritual adventure, which I went on and I did. And I feel like maybe I need to talk more about the America stuff. I spent a lot of time talking about Charlie, the relationship I had with Charlie, which was damaging to me, that relationship, um, which I think contributed massively to why my state of mind went in directions that other people didn't understand. Because that relationship was very traumatic, and pushed me away from my true self quite strongly, because I don't know why that happened. Hmm. But it did. But I feel like there's probably more to say about the America trip in terms of I need to make sense of it in light of my reasons for going were I'd been called by the universe and by God to go to America. Um, then there was a lot of judgment around that from the people around me saying, oh, you shouldn't go, and it's wrong to go, and you're crazy to go, and your reasons are wrong for going. And so all this like resistance from the outside world was saying, no, this is stupid. And I was like, no, this is definitely right for me. And in fact, you telling me that it's stupid makes me feel even more strongly that it's right to do, because if it's causing this bigger reaction, it must be a powerful action to take, because powerful actions don't just slip by. If you're doing something powerful, then you're going to cause change around you as well. And so I think that's why why I saw it as being important for me to continue this path, because if it was triggering people a lot, then I think it was a sign that it was definitely a reason for me to go. Because if people were getting very, very concerned and stuff about me, it showed that all their attachments to me and to their control patterns towards me were coming up. And so I definitely needed to do it then, you know. Yeah. All right, well, I might have to revisit the American stuff. Let's carry on with War 12, though. So I wanted to leave the country. My parents took my passport and hid it away somewhere so that I couldn't leave the country again. Remember, I'd found $4,000 in a bush. As bizarre as that sounds, that is actually true, absolutely true. And so I had money, and so I had the idea that I could go on this trip somewhere. And I was thinking Australia, but I didn't have enough money to get there. I found out when I went to Heathrow on this attempt to go fly somewhere else, because my section had run out. So let's track it back a bit again. So I'd already been sectioned before, and I got onto Ward 10 in Wexham Park Hospital from that sectioning, and then I escaped from that hospital through the lift. They say absconded is the word that they use in the technical psychiatric term, whatever, absconded. But the section 2 that I was on is the 28-day section to assess your mental health state and start to provide treatment, right? And that lasted 28 days, as I said. So my idea was that when the 28 days were finished, that everything would be back to normal again, and they would have to resection me if they wanted me back in hospital, which it was actually the case. But I guess I thought that they would probably just leave me alone, or basically I knew that I had to stay away from being found by my parents or the mental health services or the police even, because they would want to resection me or get me back on the ward, because I was supposed to be in hospital according to the law, right? According to me, I wasn't supposed to be there, so I was following my own understanding of myself and my life and my path. Man, this is hard. Pardon me. So I escaped anyway. So I escaped that ward, but the section we're going is a legal requirement. So if I was found by a mental health person who was aware of me and who knew that I should be in the hospital, then I would have been taken back. Or if I was found by my parents, they would have called the police or called the mental health team or whatever to take me back to hospital. So I had to stay away from people to make sure I didn't get back to hospital, right? So I was hiding out in my friend's house in their loft room, and I found this money, like on this adventure that I went on looking for stuff. And I actually bumped into my dad once in town, Slough, while I was in Slough randomly. And I just kind of saw him in Slough, and we made eye contact briefly for like a second or 5 seconds or something. And then I was like, oh shit. And I ran away as quick as I could so that he couldn't find me. And by the time he obviously like followed me a bit to see where I'd gone, but I'd escaped quickly, because I was like, oh shit, I just bumped into my dad. What kind of synchronicity or unhappy coincidence that is, because I was trying to avoid him, obviously, because I didn't want to get arrested again and put back in the fucking hospital. So I escaped back to my friend's house. Yeah. And then what? Okay, right, so I waited until the section wore off. Important thing that happened there was I met up with Andrea again and ended up walking out of the interaction and just thought, oh bollocks, she's not listening to me, she's not seeing me from my perspective, she's just got an idea of who I am, and I can't relate to her anymore, so I just left, went home or something. What else was important there? Well, that was the main important thing in retrospect. Yeah. And it was nice living there at Cherry's house, because it was warm and safe and no one was hassling me, apart from Cherry a little bit was hassling me about getting a job or whatever, because she was supporting me with food and stuff as well, so I was like an extra son for a brief period of time. So that's, people are friendly and willing to take you in, but then you kind of gotta give something back after a while, because otherwise you're just being a freeloader. Yeah. So she was getting a bit kind of like making noises about work and stuff, and I really wasn't in the place to be working at that time. Okay, and then yeah, so during that time my parents had got my passport and kept hold of it, and I found out this because I tried to escape the country again, but I rummaged through my bag thinking, oh, I'd already gone with the intention, I'd gone to Heathrow with the intention to fly somewhere, rummaged through my bag, kind of like, just suddenly occurred to me, oh, I'll need my passport then, rummaged through my bag to find it, and I was like, where's it gone? And because it would normally be in my bag, I'd normally keep it with me. I was like, those fucking dicks, they've nicked my passport, I know it. So I believe that was around the time that my section was wearing off. It was either that day or the day after that my section wore off. And I got back to Cherry's, and I just got really, really mad. I got really angry at my parents, just internally, for thinking that they've taken my passport, and called a cab and went round to here to get my passport back. And I was still angry because my parents were lying to me. I knew they'd taken it. Now, technically, I didn't know, as in I didn't have any evidence. I just knew intuitively. I'm glad I said that, actually, because it's sometimes you just know things intuitively, and sometimes you know things because you can like see them and there's evidence or whatever. But I think it's quite important for me to say that I knew it intuitively that they had taken my passport. I just had this, it was obvious, because who else would have taken it? I was always aware that it was with me. No one else would have had a motive to take it, so it was them. And I knew it, just instantly knew, oh, they've got it. It's not anyone else. I mean, theoretically, I could have lost it, or someone else could have taken it, but I just had this knowing. I just knew they've got it. And then when I asked them about it, the fact that they, in the way in which they were speaking about it, so when I asked them, have you got it? And they just were blanket denial. I'm like, okay, this is obvious now. You know, when someone just says no, and you're like, well, okay, you're obviously lying because you're being defensive. It's quite often, you can tell when someone's lying because the way that they respond to you is defensive when you ask them about something or other. It's like, it's kind of obvious. Someone wants to protect the truth with a lie, then they defend, so they lie. But it's in the tone of voice, it's in the kind of way that they speak. You can just tell that they're hiding information and they're trying to push, you're trying to misdirect you or whatever. I've got quite a good bullshit detector. Not that I really have to use it anymore, honestly, because I just don't surround myself with dicks anymore. Just don't surround myself with people who don't tell the truth, or people who are, dishonest or whatever. So I don't really need to use my fucking bullshit detector anymore. Not really. Most people are bullshitting in some way about something in their lives. I'm bullshitting about something, I'm sure. Yeah, so I was angry that they'd taken my passport. I was angry that they were lying to me. I was especially angry at my dad because my dad was being especially defensive about it and very adamant about the lie. And I just think that's... why lie? Right, so I got angry again, and I got violent. I slapped my dad at least twice on that occasion, and he just kind of stood there, shocked, with a sort of shocked look on his face. He didn't retaliate. He just stood there. I don't know. In a way, he looked helpless, shocked. Yeah. It's not a nice moment. It's not a nice memory. It's quite a fractured, traumatic memory. Yeah. Then my brother pulled us apart. Like, not that we were wrestling, but he kind of pulled me away or got in the way of me so that I wouldn't do any more. I feel like my mum was over to the right. My dad was in front of me to the left, and my brother was in between them. And then my mum went downstairs and called the police. And then the police arrived. Oh, before I slapped my dad. I was making a scene by banging on the drums really loudly. This was at 11 p.m. And the reason I was doing that because I thought that, okay, if I can like put pressure on my parents to want to calm me down by making loud noises in the middle of the night, that because I know that my parents were like would be concerned about the noise because of neighbours and stuff. I thought that they might just relent. I thought that they might just kind of go, okay, fine, just calm down, kind of thing. But it didn't work because they were just absolutely adamant on maintaining the lie and not giving me my passport back, which I'm like, how fucking determined are you to be an arsehole right now? But then they probably could have said the same thing to me. How determined are you to be an arsehole, Ross? Yeah. So, whatever. It was war. War of the worlds it was. It was a war of worlds. My world versus their worlds. Yeah. And their world versus mine. So, the police were called. The police arrested me very strongly, way too strongly for what was necessary, I believe, I think. I was not happy with the way I was treated by the police at all. I thought it was far too violent. It hurt. I was even saying to them, ow, that hurts, ow. Like, I was like trying not to be a typical bellend by resisting arrest. I wasn't trying to resist arrest at all. I was like just trying to be kind of human about the situation, and to communicate to them that they were being way too forceful. And I didn't want to, because if you resist arrest and you like get violent towards the police, then it's worse for yourself, and it's also, it's just not nice anyway. But these guys, they were, fucking hell, they're just fucking big, brutal brutes. Like, oh God, what is wrong with these people? I feel really sorry for myself because I've just been pounded on by these policemen who have been unnecessarily violent towards me. But then again, I was unnecessarily violent towards my dad, so it's fish and two eggs, really, isn't it? Swinging two roundabouts, swinging a roundabout. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, well, there you go. So it hurt being arrested. I obviously felt it was unjust, sorry, that I was being arrested anyway. Got in the back of the police van, started screaming my lungs out because there was nothing else to do, and I just felt completely helpless. And like, if I just had to express my feelings, just had to express myself. So I did that. I've already told this story. Why am I telling it again? I feel like I need to. Okay, got to the police station. They take my possessions, put it in a little bag, take my information, find out that my parents are not going to press charges, so that I have to stay over the night in there, and then I'll be assessed in the morning for a sectioning thing. So I stay in this cell. There's this one police dude sitting on a chair. I swear like he's reading a newspaper or something, or reading a book. And I was just chatting to him about general police activities and personal stuff about his life. Like, has he got a family? Has he got a wife? What, does he enjoy policing? Whatever. He wasn't one of the guys who arrested me. He was one of the guys at the station. And he was a nice guy. He was a decent guy. I didn't feel any malice or no bad feeling coming from him at all. Whereas the people who arrested me, felt horrible bad feelings coming from them. Painful feelings. Incidentally, I think violence is a way of taking pain from inside yourself and putting it into someone else. So you can't deal with your own pain internally, so you take it from you and you put it into someone else by being violent. So if I apply that to my own behaviour during that time, then So I obviously couldn't handle the pain inside myself about my passport, so I put it onto my dad, into my dad. Yeah. Mm. You know, there's a part of me that wants to protect myself from feeling the shame of my behavior or feeling the impact of my behavior. There's a part of me that wants to explain it away or rationalize it away or say that it was part of well, there's a part of me that wants to justify it as well, that wants to say that it was right for me to do that. And later, actually, while I was in hospital, I did justify it to various doctors. There's one in particular that I remember. Yeah, and I was justifying it on the grounds of that that I wasn't doing it with the intention of violence, of harming someone. That it was just an action that didn't have intentionality behind it or a self behind it, so therefore it doesn't count as violence. Yeah, okay, that's going to hold up in court. Yeah, all right. Yeah, explain away killing loads of people because I believed that it was the right thing to do. Okay, yeah, but you still killed a load of people, so no, that's not going to hold up. Yeah. Okay. Oh, fucking hell, this is hard. I've already told this story and I feel like, oh. Alright, okay, I can do this. So, I had that conversation with the doctor in the police station, who was creepy as fuck. Big fat guy. Asked me questions that I didn't want to answer. And I did answer most of them, but there was usually a long pause before I answered questions, because the thing with these people is people often ask you questions that come from such a whack place that even to answer them implies that the question has a validity. So, for example, if someone asks you a really loaded question like, so, um, the voices that you hear in your head, do you think that they're real? And what? Yeah, that's a loaded question because it presumes that you're hearing voices in your head. Something like that, you know. It was questions along that sort of line that were coming from a very problem-based reasoning, and each question was implying a negative, implying a malfunction. So even to answer the question on its own terms would be to engage in some level of falsehood, if that makes sense. So a person's not asking a question because it's naturally occurring to them or whatever. They're asking a question because they already believe that something's fucked up and they're trying to find what is fucked up. So if you start answering questions that are full of presumption and loadedness, then you're giving the assumptions and loadedness validity. So quite often I would not answer certain questions, and I still don't answer certain questions because it's like, I don't think you genuinely want to know the answer, for one thing, and also I'm not going to answer that question because, you know, who are you to ask me such an invasive and probing question? And I don't feel like I want to tell you that answer because it's very personal information to me. And why should I tell you, someone who I don't know, who I don't trust, who's also going to use my information potentially against me? Why should I answer your questions? You know, what the hell? Maybe I would tell that information to like therapists who I'd known for a long time and had built up a relationship of trust and stuff. But why would I tell you, random fat creepy police dude. Whatever those questions were, which I don't even really remember them. But I just remember that they were not nice questions and they were not going in any positive direction. And I just thought, I just don't want to answer these questions. And also, to actually even engage with the question would be to enter a vision of myself that was mad. And I didn't see myself in those terms. So, in order to keep my personal sense of integrity, I just didn't answer some questions. You know, when people say, I'm not going to dignify that question with a response, that's the kind of thing, or no comment, that kind of thing. You know, and you don't answer questions because the questioner has shitty motives, or the questioner has the motive to just destroy you in some way. So why answer questions that are seeking to harm you in some way? Then the mental health team came along and asked me questions, and I did answer those, and they said that I was sectionable, so fine. So yeah. Man. And so I got taken to Ward 12. Right, so we've got back to this Ward 12 topic, 36 minutes in. Ward 12. I got introduced to the ward. My belongings were given to me. The police fucked off and left me there. So why am I saying it like that? It sounds like I feel abandoned. Maybe I do feel abandoned in that situation. Abandoned by society. Abandoned by the police, abandoned by my parents, abandoned by life, abandoned by society, like abandoned by the goodness in life, and rejected by society as well. Rejected and put away into a place away from public, made to be not normal anymore. Segregated, separated, isolated, removed from society. Abandoned, left behind, contained, trapped, imprisoned. Again, second time. Right, so I was shown around the ward, shown to my room, got given a leaflet on my rights, a bit about the sectioning, how that works. There's a right to appeal as well, which I will talk about in detail at some point. What else? There was a leaflet or information thing on how the ward is run in regards to timings of meals, medication, rules such as lights out time, no sex on the ward. Visiting hours, the right to appeal, as I said. What else? Activity times, key nurse, how that works. Rights, basically your rights while you're in there. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I was given certain personal belongings. I was allowed to have money in my room. Oh yeah, there was this trolley person that came around, I think every day, with little bits and bobs, like snacks and stuff on it that you could buy, and little items, whatever, that you could buy. And I don't think I really ever bought anything, but I remember that you're not supposed to have much money on you in terms of cash on the ward, because people would steal it. The thing with the ward was that the doors to your rooms, whether it was a single room or a dormitory room, the doors were, you weren't allowed to lock it. So, as in, there was no lock, so they were openable by anyone at any time. Right? That's really bad for privacy. it's there as a rule so that people cannot kill themselves mainly, or harm themselves, or harm anyone else by the locking of a door. There's only one room for patients that is lockable, which is the isolation room, which I spoke about in another video recently. But your normal rooms, you're not allowed to lock the door. There is no lock on the door, but people would find ways. I've read about this in a book about someone else who is sectioned, but you can obviously find ways to lock the door, barricade the door, like move furniture in front of it, move the bed in front of it, whatever. I never did any of those things because I mean, like, you can do stuff in order to get your way. Like this particular person who I was reading about, she was a ligaturist. Does that sound like it's a professional ligaturist? That's horrible because ligaturing is basically trying to kill yourself or harm yourself by using string or other long, thin devices. How long is a piece of ligature? The eternal question. Yeah, so yeah, you can do stuff to get your way. But I think that by that point I was a bit subdued, honestly. I mean, I did actually protest for a while about the fact that I shouldn't be there. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But or I might not talk about it. It will come up properly in full. But yeah, so you can get your way if you be a bastard or whatever, but then it just causes a fuss. So like what I wanted to do really was I wanted to have a wank in private and not in the toilet because the toilet was a bit gross. I just wanted to have a bedtime wank or midday wank, and having wanks in the ward when that fucking door is openable at any time is not exactly the most secure of feelings, or private. It didn't feel private. There was no privacy on the ward or in the ward ever. Especially because, as I have mentioned, an ongoing phenomenon in the ward was observation. So you were being observed all the time at regular intervals. And one of those observational things that happened was a nurse of either sex, pardon me, would come along at any time, but usually once every half an hour or hour or something, and look in your window through your door, because each door had a little window on it as well, so that's even less privacy. And they just come and sort of poke their head through the window of the door just to see if you're alive, if you're dead, if you're trying to kill yourself, if you're having a wank, whatever, if you've done a shit and are throwing it against the walls, or if you've trashed the room by smashing the bed against the cupboards, whatever. So they have to do this observation thing. But from a patient perspective, from my perspective as a patient, it was ridiculously invasive, because how do you can't feel safe. You can't feel like you have emotional privacy or physical privacy or just any sense of privacy at all on your life because of this constant observation that's going on. So in order to have a wank, I had to wait for the middle of the night after lights out, in between a period of observations, and like to make sure that I'd like waited for them to not be on their observation round or whatever it was. And so it wasn't exactly the most thrilling of wanks, I'll be honest. I had to hide it underneath the covers, and normally I wouldn't hide underneath the covers. Normally I'd have it open. Yeah, so that, I mean, it's a silly example in a way, but it's also a very important example because there's no sexual privacy either. There's just no privacy in general. No privacy. Yeah. So that sucks. Okay, so that was that aspect. I'm just going to talk about Ward 12 generally now, Like, it's not going to necessarily be coherent at this stage, because there's being on the ward, the sense of time is very strange and very warped. Because I was contained in this one place, right? There was no real structure in terms of moving towards anything. Weeks weren't really like normal weeks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everything was a ward day, like you had the routines of the ward, which would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and medication times. But there was no difference, because it's not like, okay, so Monday to Friday you go to work. No, Monday to Friday you're on the ward. Okay, in a normal life, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe, like, depending on your work schedule, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or whatever fucking schedule you work, you'd have time on and time off. Well, in the ward, everything was time on. Time on. Always time on. So, or you could see it from another perspective, always time off, which just means no delineation of time, really. No delineation of work time, play time, sex time, TV time. No delineation of time. No, like, okay, for 8 hours I'm going to be doing such and such, or for 4 hours I'm going to be doing such and such. It was just all hours I'm going to be being here on the ward. So it's like no fucking structure to anything. So, like, to talk about it, it's very difficult to make chronological sense of it, for one thing, because everything is contained within this ward environment, and like one day is not really much different from the next. So stuff in my memory, stuff just kind of is there as this amorphous mass of ward things that happened. So I've got lots of little stories about things that happened. But to say, okay, well, there are some chronological linear points of the narrative, because obviously there was a beginning to it. Like, I came into the ward, then there was a bulk of time that I was on the ward, which we could say is the middle, and then there was the end, which was me gradually having more and more leave time towards the end of my stay. And then finally I was I'm going to say words like ejected, expelled, removed, set free. If I was incarcerated, uncarcerated. But what's the right word? Dispelled, expelled, discharged. I was discharged from the ward. So that's the end. So there are chronological, linear events in the sequence of time on the ward. But kind of, all right. So the beginning was me arriving there, me finding my room, me being showed around. Also, I remember quite early on there was this girl who, I was playing the piano, and this girl came along. She was another inpatient. She came along and was like listening to me play, and she says, "Oh, she wants to write a song with me, right?" And I'm like, okay, right, no, but she just started singing stuff. When I was a little girl, people didn't love me, or whatever. I don't know what it was, but she started singing some song about her being a little girl. And I didn't want to carry on with this. Like, being around mad people all the time, because mad people are invasive. Mad people don't know when to stop talking. Mad people have no real, like, social boundaries. That's one of the reasons why they're in a hospital, is because they have lost their fucking minds. They've lost their socialization to some degree. They've lost the ability to, like, contain themselves within rigid social behavior. So they're just walking around and spout the random nonsense that's in their mind and behave in whatever way occurs to them at any given moment. Right? With very little care for how they're affecting other people. That's, like, kind of one of the things, isn't it? One of the aspects of this is that your behavior is very you kind of you don't have the same sensitivity to other people as you would do in some forms of this mental illness. So this girl came along and she just kind of basically barged her way in to me playing the piano and wants to write a song with me, and then starts singing random lyrics. And I honestly just wanted her to fuck off and for me to just be playing by myself. And she did actually end up going away after a while, but it's like, again, a similar feeling to the lack of privacy, which is, okay, so I'm playing on the piano and I want to just do my own thing, and I get all fucking knobs coming up to me, and trying to get in on it all, and I'm like, I just need I want to do this for myself to enjoy my playing. And now I've got people who have suddenly, like, because it's a communal area, and they want me to be the piano guy now, and I was like, I don't want to be the piano guy, you know. I'm fucking depressed. I'm trapped in a ward. I'm doing this because it's something that I could possibly enjoy, and to distract me from the fucking feeling of horror and depression and isolation and not sadness but gloom, I suppose, and self-pity and alienation that I was feeling. So, and then I got these mad people around me. So again, same sort of feeling of lack of privacy, being invaded. So that happened like near the beginning. Yeah. And in a way, the beginning parts were quite bright, or they are quite bright in my memory. So the beginning of being on the ward is quite clear and bright, because I guess my energies were still quite strong at that time. Like I hadn't taken any of their medication at that point still. So my understanding of things was quite clear. But then there are periods after that where, because I've got this medication in my brain, I just feel like things are blurry. You know, memories have got blurs in them. That, like, the movement of the imagery in my head is like a bit sort of almost as though I'm drunk or something. It's got like this weird blurry feeling about it. But in the beginning, it feels quite clear, so I can see things clearly in those memories and remember things clearly. And I feel like the person I was at that time felt quite clear. And then medication came, and medication came because I was not given a choice. I was given a choice. The choice was either you take it or we shove it in you. So I decided I'd take it rather than have it violently or brutally shoved in me in some way. But I was unhappy with that, because I was unhappy that I'd not been given a choice. I'd realised that this was a false choice, a false sense of choice they were trying to give me. There was no real choice about the subject of taking the medication. The choice was within the parameters of, you are going to take it, either you take it willingly or we give it to you forcefully. The subject of if medication will be taken was not in question. There was no if. It was already decided. They decided, and they're giving me this false choice, basically. I mean, the real situation would have been, I could have resisted it and fought it every time the medication came, but I guess I'd just been so subdued and downtrodden by the system that my will to fight against these things had been trodden on and squashed. The rebellion, the one-man rebellion against the system, was faltering. Now let's go back to talk about this protest, because it's a similar sort of thing. So again, near the beginning of the stay, the first few days maybe, again, I didn't think that I should be there. I thought that it was wrong that I was in hospital. I shouldn't be on the ward. It was an assault to my dignity that I was being kept against my will. Which, yeah, I guess it is. It is an assault to your dignity to be kept somewhere against your will. When you, does that apply to prison then as well? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe prison is an undignified thing, but I guess it's a necessary thing if you're dangerous to other people. So similar sort of thing applies to hospital. I don't like it. I don't think it's nice. But maybe it is necessary. I don't want to believe it's necessary. I want to believe that it's not necessary to detain someone. Messy. Okay, so near the beginning of the stay, I was protesting. I did not want to be there. I was telling people I shouldn't be there, and it was wrong that I was there. And I think that people were kind of like, yeah, okay, see how long this lasts for. Yeah, protesting, woo. And I guess I was trying to use this strategy of making things happen that in the outside world had worked quite well. You know, you say you want something to change, so you ask for it really hard, and then you use non-violent action to demonstrate your wishes and demands and to show people that things are wrong. And you take the example of like Gandhi, who did hunger strikes and things like that, and you use your personal behavior to influence people, really, to get a change to happen. And so I was using that kind of tactic of, okay, they sort of say that I'm supposed to be here. Here's my retaliation against that, and here's my protest, which says I'm not going to be here, so I'm going to act like I'm not supposed to be here, which means that's strange logic now, but I was saying, I do not give this situation validity, so I'm not going to use the facilities provided at all, including the toilet. No power, no nothing, which is a ridiculous fucking proposition because you're already using the facilities by being there. Like you're using the floor, you're using the ceiling to protect you, you know. So it was kind of silly, but I thought, what else could I do? This is my protest and try to get some change. So I told people that I was protesting and that I shouldn't be there. One girl who was a long-term patient at that time, I told her that I was protesting. She went, "Oh yeah, I used to do that as well." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah." But then I just gave it up. And eventually I did give my protest up as well. But I was a bit like, I was very passionate about this protest for a while, and I was, no, I'm not going to use any power supply. I'm not going to charge my phone using your sockets. I'm not going to use your toilets. I'm not going to I'm not going to act as though I'm supposed to be here. Like, I'm not going to dignify this place with using its facilities. And I think I was also thinking that I wouldn't eat dinner and stuff, and I wasn't going to sleep on the bed and all this kind of thing. So I told some of my friends I was doing that as well. I said, I'm on a protest, blah 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 blah. And I did that by text. Then my phone started to run out of battery, and I was like, well, I want to protest, so I'm not going to use their power supply or anything. I'm not going to use their toilets either. So obviously I needed the toilet. And what this amounted to was me sitting on the floor, maybe with a little sign saying, I'm on a protest, I'm not supposed to be here. Fucking hell. Yeah. Sitting on the floor with a sign protesting, I'm not supposed to be here. And then I needed a piss, and I just went for a piss in my pants on the floor. And this actually links back to something I did in art university, sorry, when I was studying art, which I did this protest piece of art where I was, it was a piece about factory farming because I was a vegan at that time and I was into vegan politics, let's say that, vegan views and stuff, and animal rights. And I did this performance piece of art, which was, I got this cage made up by the art department woodworking guy who was there to help people with different woodworking and sculpture type of needs. I asked him to make a cage up of these certain dimensions with like chicken wire and wood with a little hatch flap thing on it, right? And the purpose of it was to show what it would be like if a human was in factory farming conditions, and that we wouldn't treat a human like this, so why would we treat animals like this? Then I also painted this big sign, like on the wall, on paper on the wall, behind this little stunt that I was doing, which is saying "End factory farming," and I wrote all the lyrics to my song "Species Our Slaves," available now on iTunes. I wrote those lyrics. Let's see if we've got the lyrics here. I wrote those lyrics in the background. No, we don't have them. Yeah, which was stuff like "Species Our Slaves," "Severed and Slain," "Battery Livestock in a Pen of Shit," "Kill It Faster Than I Blink My Eye," "Freeze the Season So We Forever Yield," stuff like that in the background, right? In red, so it looked like blood. Yeah. And then there was me sat in this cage in front of it for 5 hours. And I got people to do a video recording of me every hour to ask me about my physical, emotional, and psychological state. The purpose of that was to create a document of how being kept in a cage makes you feel, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it was all, I think it's quite a good statement piece, really, to do that as a stunt, to say, look, I think it's a perfect representation of trying to bring empathy to the factory farming situation, if I do say so myself. So during that time, I was in a cage and I was committed to that stunt, so I wallowed in my own filth and I allowed myself to go for a piss. However, there was also a part here that was I need to describe, which was I was intending to be completely naked in there, right? Performance art, everyone's always fucking naked. Okay. If you've ever seen any performance art pieces, quite oftentimes, in my experience of performance art, they're fucking naked, right? There's videos of people doing fucking dances, and that's a performance art. And then there's this other performance art piece that involved this woman who like had tied string onto her dreadlocks, and the piece was her sort of spinning around naked, while like these dreadlocks sort of twizzled around and was supposed to symbolize something or other, whatever. Yeah, so everyone's always fucking naked in performance art. So I was intending to be naked, right? But I was also with this guy called Charlie. Remember, I had this boyfriend in that university period of time. And I told Charlie of my fucking project to be in a cage naked for like 5 hours of the day and ask people to fucking ask me these questions about my psychological state, and it's all about the factory farming thing, and yeah, la 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 la. And obviously Charlie, being insecure about the relationship or himself or me or whatever, said, oh, I'm not happy with people seeing you naked. And I'm like, oh God, you fucking possessive bastard. So I agreed to compromise my artistic integrity and to wear these stupid fucking tights. So I wore these like skin tights, female women's tights, whatever, skin coloured tights, right? Just so so that it would kind of mask my penis a little bit. Everyone else is allowed to be naked in performance art, but because Charlie was unhappy with it, I don't want people seeing your penis because your penis is mine. But I agreed to it because he was a control freak and I was a wimp. Yeah, there you go. Oh God, time's up, ish. So anyway, so I put these tights on. I think I felt more stupid wearing the tights than I would have felt if I was naked, honestly. And then I pissed myself in the cage. As I said, I think I said that anyway. But I had like cardboard down so that the piss was absorbed in it. But it was all part of the point that I was making. You know, these animals are kept in their own filth, and kept in very tight conditions. So no wonder they're unhappy and they go insane and they start pecking each other and stuff. But like, I'm thinking of chickens. Yeah. So that travelled forward because that was like a protest piece of art. I was very protest orientated during my art, during my university days. I was always protesting something and demonstrating for something and trying to campaign for something, right? So all that kind of stuff came back to me and I was like, right, I'm going to do a protest in the ward, yeah. And that was similar. Like, I'm going to not use their facilities. This is my protest statement. And therefore, after a while, I needed a piss, and so I pissed. So I've got this issue where I just want to piss everywhere. Yeah, that's my true mental health problem. Is I just want to piss on everything, everywhere, against the rules of society. So I want to I want to piss in a cage, on the floor, in an art department. I want to piss on the floor. There's only pissing on the floor. I want to piss on the floor. In a ward environment, in a psychiatric ward, I just want to piss on the floor. I actually still like pissing on things. I especially like pissing in bushes. It's my favourite way to pee is outdoors in a bush. Honestly, I prefer pissing in a bush than peeing indoors. I just find it's better. It's just better. It feels better. It feels right. You know, it feels like true to my Neanderthal fucking background. Anyway, so I was on the ward and I was doing this protest and I pissed myself, right? And then, so after a while, this puddle of piss was around me. So it kind of went into my trousers and it went out onto the floor and this fucking puddle of yellow piss on the floor. Oh dear, all around me. And you know, it's a busy ward and people are walking about. So pretty soon after the piss was on, on the floor, pretty soon after that, some nurse found it or some patient found it and alerted the nurses, and I was just sitting there like with my little fucking sign. I want to protest. I'm not going to use any of the facilities. Sitting in a puddle of my own piss. And oh god, you got to fucking laugh. I think because it's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, so they found me sat in a pile of my own piss. With a little sign on a piece of paper, I want to protest. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not going to use any facilities, blah, blah, blah. Probably even signed it at the bottom as though it was going to help me get out. And I was like, directed my focus towards the door, by the way, the exit door. I was like there, looking at the door, thinking that, okay, this is going to help me get out. Because, all right, let's add another layer of complexity to this ridiculous situation. Was another layer of complexity is I was powerless. I couldn't do anything to affect a change in my situation. So I was basically clutching at straws in a helpless, powerless way to try and change my situation. But I couldn't change my situation, not by the virtue of my own actions. So I can see me doing a protest. I'm just like clutching at straws as to how can I actually get out of here. I just wanted to get out of here. So the protest, I was just trying to get people to notice me and trying to try and change the situation for myself, and I couldn't. It was not an effective strategy. There was nothing I could actually do um, to change my situation. Nothing I could do. Um, so so I did that. And as I was saying, they found me in a pile of piss, and I think like it was one of the patients who found me first, and they asked me like, "What are you up to?" And they went and told a nurse, and then the nurse came along. It was actually the ward manager, I think, who came along, and she was quite a brisk woman. She was brisk but caring. So what do I mean by brisk? I mean you just like no nonsense, like action oriented. You know, woof, 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 woof. But she was also quite a caring person at the same time. But she just basically picked me up off the floor by my arm, saying, "Oh, what are you doing? You know, this is ridiculous. Let's get you into some proper clothes. You know, why have you done that?" And kind of picked me up by my arm and didn't drag me, but pulled me to my room and came and gave me some new clothes to change into, which in a way was nice. In a way, it's just very undignified. The whole thing was really undignified. Like I wasn't even allowed to protest. Okay, I understand. I'm causing an obstruction. I was causing an obstruction to the flow of the ward by being in the middle of the fucking floor on the corridor. So yeah, fair enough that they wanted to do that. But it's like, there's nothing dignified about being in a hospital, I don't think. So I'm not even allowed to protest. I'm not even allowed to like try and change my situation. So yeah, I got picked up by the ward manager and dragged, I guess, but I was standing up and walking, but she was kind of like pulling my arm along, a bit like a naughty child, basically. I was a naughty child. Pulled along to my room and given some new clothes to change into. It's kind of sad, really, isn't it? And then she fucked off. She left me there to get changed, and that was it. Well, there we go. Let's leave it there. Fieros' story time. Ward 12 stuff. The piss. The evil piss is everywhere. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.